Morning, everyone. We're just about to get started here as the smooth jazz soundtrack fades away and start the business of the 2016 Ontario One Call Annual General Meeting. You all have a copy of the agenda that's in the annual report that you all handed as you came in. You'll also see the agenda items up on the screen today. We should go for about an hour and a half with the formal business and presentations. And as we have in previous years, we'll end with a plenary session where people from the floor can ask questions of the outgoing chair, the incoming chair, and also myself. I should probably start by introducing myself. My name's Ben Hamilton. I'm the Executive Director of Ontario One Call. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I look forward to presenting in just a little bit. But first of all, to start the formal proceedings, I'd like to introduce and welcome to the podium Shelley Cunningham, the Chair of the Board.
Thanks, Ben, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to the annual general meeting today. I'd like to welcome you all here on behalf of the Board of Directors. We are a not-for-profit organization with an open model of governance, and as such, member engagement is very important to us, and so the fact that you are here today is an important part of our mandate, so thank you. We do have a very large cross-section of our membership here today, which is excellent to see. But I'd also like to welcome the excavators that are here today and our other stakeholders. And lastly, we also have officials from the Ontario Ministry of Government and Consumer Services here today as well, so welcome all of you. As Ben mentioned, in the spirit of openness, we will have an open plenary session following our meeting today where you can ask questions. Myself, Ben, and our incoming chair, Len McMillan, will be coming up as well to answer those questions. I do want to note that our proceedings today, they are being recorded on videotape, so they will be posted on the website if you would like to review them afterwards or share with your cohorts and other members that you may come across. So today we have 100 plus attendees. As well, I have with me 22 proxies, and as such, all sectors are covered for this meeting, and I would declare that we do have quorum for today. So next piece to do is last year's AGM. It was held on Thursday, June 4th, 2015. The minutes of last year's AGM were circulated in advance of this meeting. And so I'd like to take this opportunity for us to approve the minutes. If you had a chance to review the minutes, I do know there is one error in the minutes that need to be corrected, and that is the date. It has the wrong year, and so we will make that correction. Are there any other pieces that need to be corrected from the minutes? So, shall the minutes be approved? Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those not in favor? The minutes are carried and approved. There were no matters arising from the items in the minutes on the AGM. So as such, we're going to proceed to my report as board chair. So I joined the board in 2013, and back when I joined, it was really hard to imagine the Ontario One Call that we have today. Back then, we were a very small entity. We only had a handful of staff in a very small office, and now we have 85 employees at a brand new facility on 104 Cooper Drive in Guelph. And I hope that you will be able to join us later today for the opening of the facility, the official, and that will follow immediately after the AGM. Our new headquarters demonstrates our commitment to delivering high-quality services to our members and excavators, and our commitment to continually look for new ways to improve our value to members. You will hear today about a number of initiatives that I believe will improve the quality of service and benefit damage prevention efforts in Ontario. To support this work, the Board of Directors this past year has created a 5-year strategic vision And you're going to find that summarized in the annual report that you were given today. So the five-year vision includes a number of pieces. We envision that members viewing Ontario One Call as an extension of their own internal damage prevention processes to provide strategic value is an important piece. Ontario One Call providing services that are innovative and services that unlock value for members is important. Excavators is a piece that's important, and it's important for them to see Ontario One Call as reliable, firm, and fair. And from a stakeholder perspective, the government is also an important stakeholder, and we believe it's important Ontario One Call view us as open, transparent, and listening to stakeholders. Lastly, sort of the last piece of the vision is for the public, which is really important, and for them to have a universal commitment to call before you dig. So damage prevention, it's not the responsibility of just one organization. Each of our members of Ontario One Call, we're all taking a part and making sure Ontario is free of damages to buried infrastructure. Excavators as well, you are committed to the workers using the locate process, so all your workers can go home safely at the end of the day. So because of that, that's why we will continue to work as an organization with other key stakeholder groups, especially the ORCGA, to spread the message, call before you dig. So we also have an important relationship with the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, and we continue to meet as a couple members on the board with senior staff of the ministry. And I do know that Ben meets frequently at a staff level, and there's a great relationship with the ministry at the staff level as well. So we will continue to build this relationship with the ministry to support our obligations as they're outlined in our letter of understanding we have with the ministry. Later in this meeting, we're going to be welcoming new members to the board of directors, but I would be remiss if I didn't give thanks to one person, and that's Bruce Furlong. Bruce, if you'd like to stand. So Bruce, I want to acknowledge him because he is leaving the board. Will be his last meeting, and his term is expiring. But Bruce has been our former chair, and while Bruce was chair, he certainly helped lead our organization through some exciting times when Bill 8 and our bylaws were implemented. And a key piece that Bruce oversaw is the remarkable work to onboard over 700 members. So thank you, Bruce. We're grateful for your contributions. Thank you. So as I pass the role of chair to Len McMillan, I'm reminded that there's much work to be done. And I know through Len's leadership that the next 12 months we will get closer to our end goal and our vision than we are today. That's the goal. The goal is one we all share, and it's essentially a safer Ontario. That's why this organization was created. A province where there's no damages to buried infrastructure, where workers and the public can all go home safely. I'm thankful for the work that each of you as members, excavators, and staff do each day to make Ontario safer, and I'm certainly grateful for the opportunities I've had to contribute to this organization. So with that, I'm going to call on Ben Hamilton, our Executive Director, to make the Executive Director's report.
Thank you very much, Shelley. As I said before, my name's Ben Hamilton. I'm the Executive Director of Ontario One Call. And I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the successes of 2015 and also some of the work that we're planning for 2016 and beyond. I was at a meeting of stakeholders recently, and one of them said, Ontario One Call, they're making a lot of progress. I'd say they're about 85%. On their way, or 85% complete. And I spoke after that person, and I said, I'm quite flattered by that. I'd put us more around 35%. So, not to turn down praise. Certainly our organization and our board and my great staff, we have a lot of really good ambitions for this organization and what it can do for members and excavators and what it can deliver in terms of its public mandate to improve public education and awareness around the need to call before you dig. I'll share some of the numbers that really stand out in terms of Ontario One Call and what's been going on in the industry. The first number is 1 million. We received almost 1 million requests last year. I think we'll easily cross that this year. And all of you, who are members, have seen very large increases year over year. Some of that, creates concerns just with volumes and more work to do and more costs. At the same time, we have to recognize it as a mark of success as well, that people who are not calling in for locates are calling in now. People in the excavation industry, whether you're excavators or members with their excavation hats on, are listening to the message of call before you dig, and we're making good progress to make sure that all the members have the opportunity to protect infrastructures, workers, and members of the public. The second one is minus 40%. We've reduced fees by about 40% with two reductions year over year. So from a mixed rate of about $1.75 all the way down to $1.10 for this year. So we've done a lot to reduce the per notification costs that members pay to help offset some of the increases in volumes they have. 1,000 plus, more than 1,000 people undertook the training put on by Ontario One Call today. I know Jeff Hitchcock's here. He handles our education and training function. And the staff's done a lot of great work in terms of educating members and excavators on the web ticket. They've helped train them on the proper use of emergency locates. They've helped train them on the proper use of alternate locate agreements, ALA. And we'll continue to do that because it's something that provides a lot of value for our membership. And we want our members to use those tools to help manage their workloads and save costs. And 85, as Shelley mentioned, our staffing cohort's about 85 at this time of year. Our peak season staffing, it goes down to maybe around 50 or so in the non-peak season, but you get a strong sense of the journey that we've been on. When I first started working with Ontario One Call about 10 years ago, through my work with ORCGA when I was on their Government Relations Committee, Ontario One Call was mostly a virtual organization, and then it existed with 1 or 2 or 3 staff. And even when I took over a little under 2 years ago, I think I was employee number 11 or 12. So in 2 years to go from 12 employees to 85 employees and have it go really smoothly is a real testament to, first, the backing and consistent support that we've got from our board of directors, and also to the great team we have in Ontario One Call. And, in every functions from operations to human resources to administration and accounting and compliance, they've all pulled together and done a tremendous job at building a really strong and compelling organization. And certainly you'll see the benefits of that when you visit our new office at 104 Cooper Drive after this event. So just in recognition of the staff, I hope you join me in giving them a round of applause. So looking forward, you all received a copy of the annual report this year. You'll notice it's very different than previous annual reports, but it also includes the 2016 business plan and the 5-year strategic plan that takes us through 2020. It's the first time that we've really put in our annual report the longer-term vision for Ontario One Call. A lot of this insight and information comes from the membership, and it was captured by the board in their strategic planning session in September 2015. So I want to take some time just to unpackage it a little bit and to tell you more about what we're doing in the short term and the longer term as well. From the work of the board, there were 3 main themes identified. The first being member focus and value, so really helping our membership succeed in the One Call system. The second is openness and transparency, and this objective really has a lot of touch points with how we operate as an organization with an open governance model. and also how we communicate to the government, to the stakeholders, and to the public at large. And also governance and accountability. We spent a lot of years, starting from 2012 with the passage of Bill 8, around governance issues and accountability issues, and we continue to make that a priority to make sure the organization is listening closely to the views of the membership, of excavators, and of stakeholders. So in the next slide, I'm going to take those three headings and just break it down by some of the 2016 objectives. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. You'll hear more of this from the representative from the Operations Committee and also Katie Gottsman, the Operations Director. But just to give you some of the highlights. So under member focus and value, improved mapping is certainly the top of mind issue for most members, whether it's improving their own mapping and also on the Ontario One Call end, what we can do to help reduce over-notification and address those types of issues. So you'll hear a lot from Katie and Operations Committee about our efforts on that front. Improved reporting. Later on today, the board at their meeting will see some of the tools that we're producing to help members understand their own performance and identify any gaps and opportunities for improvement. And that's an important part of how we help our members succeed, but also how we communicate outwards to stakeholders to demonstrate the success of the regime. And also addressing system abuses. Our compliance team, Steve Waugh and Rob Matthews, have been doing a lot of work on this front, reducing emergency locate abuse, which is a top of mind issue for members. We have some very good results that we'll talk about a little later on, and also things along the lines of ticket dumping and other excavator type abuses. They've done a lot to address those, and through education and training, work with those members and guide them towards better systems that'll help the entire system work better for everyone. Under openness and transparency, one thing that's getting started this year that's been a real high item on our to-do list is a public education mandate. It's one of the mandates in the legislation itself, and when the board undertook its strategic planning, I was really quite surprised how high it was in terms of their thinking. And when you review the mission statement that's in the annual report, you'll see it's very prominent in the board's thinking. So this year, with a partnership with OKD Marketing, which is a firm based in Burlington, we're rolling out the first $500,000 of spending just to increase awareness of Ontario One Call, its mandate, and the need to call before you dig. I hope to grow that amount significantly in future years to help provide a lot of cover for the 13 million Ontarians. But I also want to work with the members as well who have their own initiatives to communicate about damage prevention through bill inserts, through radio ads, and some of the initiatives they have. So on one hand, we want to take responsibility for a lot of the high-level work, but we also want to work closely with members to help amplify that effect. Reporting on locate delivery performance, as I mentioned earlier, this is an important deliverable for both the members and outside observers. We want to have really clear standards that will help everyone understand where they stand in terms of compliance and where they are able to improve. And greater disclosure on the Ontario One Call website. This is a work in progress. We started posting many of our minutes and other documents on the website, but as we go forward, we want to disclose more information about our organization, what we do, and some of the results and metrics that we see as an organization. We have a really unique position, being really the center point of the excavation community and the membership. And we have the opportunity to collect a lot of information, provide a lot of analysis to members and excavators and the government, and that's something we really hope to do and expand on in future years. On governance and accountability, we've certainly put a lot more focus on the Operations Committee. They've been revitalized really with the appointment of a new chair and vice chair, also an expanded membership. So they're doing a lot to increase their ability to inform our organization about some of the operational priorities that members and excavators face. Formalizing compliance procedures, and we'll hear from Gord Campbell, the chair of the Compliance Committee on that front. And engagement of governance. This is really the board's focus on governance issues, whether it be the bylaws, the legislation itself, the MOU, LOU we have with a ministry that really defines our relationship with government. Those are all things that the board pays careful attention to because they do want to succeed on the governance and accountability front. I want to talk and just wrap up on this slide because I want to talk about my team. And I've praised them already, but every opportunity I have to praise them is not opportunity enough because they've done a fantastic job. In a few hours, you'll see the in-house contact center. A great cast of VIPs are coming. The local MPP, Liz Sandals, who's a cabinet minister, is coming. The mayor, Cam Guthrie, is coming. And also the two sponsors of the original Bill 8 legislation, Bob Bailey and Paul Miller, and we'll have a presentation to those two as well. So it's a really important day for the organization, but the success that we've had in moving our contact center in-house has been phenomenal, and the staff have done an incredible job at making that vision a reality in a very short period of time. With the in-house contact center, we really want to expand what we can do for members. We can implement policy improvements faster, we can implement tweaks in our procedures faster, and generally provide a more responsive service. So we have a lot of ambitions and ideas about how our in-source contact center can provide value that we don't even conceive of at this moment. So there's a lot of ambition on that front. The new headquarters, of course, 11,000 square feet. Our organization and all its functions are finally under one roof. And that's a real big improvement. It makes it rather seamless when we work on the corporate side to work with the contact center side and really implement and make changes that we need to make. And to have a unified organization where you can have a single HR approach, where you have the same office, where everyone's easily accessible, that's a huge benefit to the organization. I've mentioned too our new staff, growing from 12 to 85 in the last year or so. I gotta give a lot of credit to the staff that started with me 2 years ago, but I also have to give a lot of credit for the new staff. And these are people who've been on board for 6, 7 months in many cases. It's really been extraordinary watching them step up in a brand new organization, new to them, in a brand new office with a brand new task that's very foreign to most of them. Now to see them and listen to them as they handle excavator requests and as they work with members on some of their needs, you'd probably think they've been there for 10 years. That's how fluent they are, and that's how helpful they are to the members. So I'm really impressed by the very new staff that we've brought on, and a lot of that's due to the excellent training that's been put on by the team at Ontario One Call. So I think better things are coming, and that our staff is stronger and deeper than ever, and that the members will benefit from that going forward. And of course, I don't think we've been very subtle about this, we have a brand new logo. It's pretty much all green, everything, as you can see from the slides, from the napkins, from the cover of the annual report. That'll be driven home even more strongly when you visit the office, where that new color scheme and logo features very prominently. But it's more than just changing the logo because we wanted to change the logo. It really reflects the growth of the organization since Bill 8. It reflects an organization that's larger, but also much more nimble and ambitious in terms of supporting its membership. So when you see the new logo, don't just as a nice color scheme. It's really a statement of intent. It's really an expression of a fresh organization that's eager to make a lot of positive change. And for those of you who are members here and excavators and stakeholders, you have an important role to play. So I encourage you to support our committees and get involved, to participate in our training, in our webinars, and even stand for the board if you haven't considered that before. And certainly being here today at the AGM is an important step as well. So I thank you for your support. Look forward to implementing these changes over the next few months and into the future. And certainly I feel very fortunate to have the team that I do and the strong support of the board to make those things happen. Thanks very much.
So I'd like now to call on Karen Marner. She's our treasurer of the board to make the financial report.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm sure this is the moment everyone's been waiting for, to hear from the accountant. So I invite everyone to open up their annual report if they so choose. I am going to run through some highlights from page 22 to 28. So I'm just going to start with our statement of revenue and expenses. For most for-profit companies, that would be an income statement. We are not for-profit, hence the name Statement of Revenue and Expenses. Our revenues increased in 2015 to 9.3 million, and that's up from the 7.3 million that we experienced in 2014. This increase occurred even though the notification fees were actually reduced to the $1.40 that Ben referenced. I do also want to point out on the revenue side, however, that at the bottom of page 23, or second from the bottom, we did provide members with a rebate of $2 million. This growth in revenue has allowed for a further reduction in our notification fees. So for 2016, we are now at $1.10 for the notification fee compared to the $1.40 for 2015. On the expense side, our costs remain well below our revenues. Total expenses for 2015 were roughly 6.2 million versus the 5.9 million in 2014. You can see at the top two expenses that this was due to the incremental staffing cost of the move to put the contact center in-house and to transition the contact center from a third party in-house. So 2015 was really the year of transition for those expenses. With the establishment of the in-house contact center, you will also see a significant increase in the value of the net assets. So the net assets are actually found on page 28. So in our property and equipment, you can see that there were some significant increases in our computer software, our computer equipment, and furniture. Also, one of the more significant items there is the leasehold improvement increase. This is for the new facility at 104 Cooper Drive. Now I'm going to spend just a few moments, that was very colloquial of me. I'm going to spend just a few minutes on your 2016 forecast. The cash and cash equivalents are projected to remain approximately $4 million throughout 2016. This is to ensure that the corporation has sufficient flexibility to fund the future upgrades and system enhancements that we're going to discuss later today. Also, we want to make sure that we have a reasonable buffer in case there's any unforeseen variances in the operating revenue. The current financial outlook for 2016 is on track with the budget. Even with the significant fee reduction, the board projects a modest net positive income and positive cash flow. We will continue to monitor the financial situation closely and will continue to look for opportunities to reduce member costs. At the same time, we are committed to ensure that the organization has the funds it needs to successfully deliver on its commitments. And with that, I'll send it back over to Shelley.
Thanks very much, Karen, for your report. So one of our tasks at the AGM each year is to appoint an independent auditor for Ontario One Call for the current year. And the board proposes that Donna A. Goldstein, Chartered Accountant, Professional Corporation, continue as our auditor for 2016. So could I get a motion for Donna Goldstein to continue as the auditor, independent auditor for Ontario One Call? Enrico, second. Tony? Please raise your hands if you're in favor. Are there any opposed? Consider that motion carried. Thank you. So the next task is to elect the Board of Directors. This is described in Ontario One Call bylaw number 2, Article 12. So as required, we have a governance and nomination committee, and they've received the nominations for the open board positions. We had 3 open board positions, and they've prepared the slate of directors. So on the screen in front of you On the left are those members who will be continuing, and on the right are the proposed new members. To keep things simple, what I'm going to do is put the question to the entire membership with respect to the slate of directors. Only if there is some opposition, then I will go sector by sector. So with that, if I could ask you to raise your hand if you are in favor with the proposed slate of directors. Are there anybody that is opposed to the slate of directors? Thank you for that. I consider that carried. So that will be the slate of Board of Directors for the upcoming year. I would like to recognize the board members and those that are taking on the task, because we do meet frequently during the year. It is a commitment of time and experience, and certainly as an organization, we appreciate their experience. So if I could ask each member to stand. I know not all the board members are here, but those that are here, I go through them. Corinne Gabriel from the town of Kingsville, and Enrico Scalera from the town of Oakville. I don't believe John Oakley, did you come in? John Oakley is from Enbridge Gas. He's not here at the AGM today. I didn't see Mike Shannon come in either. He's from Union Gas. Len McMillan, representing Hydro One. Scott Muddy, he's from Oakville Hydro Energy Services, and I know he's coming later. Tony Fascia from Rogers. Dan Moulton, representing the telecom sector. Karen Marner from Aecon. And Tony DePede from North Rock Group. So that's the slate of the Board of Directors for the upcoming season. Thank you to all of you for your contributions. I'd also like to welcome our new members, Pierre Fontaine. Pierre is from the Laurentian University. I'm not sure if these two have come in. Michael Florini from Cable. Is Michael here? And William Shea from the City of Toronto. William? So thank you to both of you for joining the board. Appreciate it. Thank you. So we have three committees, or three presentations, two from our committees and one from our Director of Operations. So we will go through each one of those. So at this time, I'd like to call up Gord Campbell. Gord is our chair of the Compliance Committee, and he's going to report on what they've been working on.
Hopefully we'll get that right. Good morning, I'm Gord Campbell from the chair of the Compliance Committee, and let's make sure we can do that right. So the Compliance Committee at one call is one of the standing committees that's mentioned in the regulations, and it's all laid out how it is built and operates. And our mandate is to uphold the regulations in Schedule 2, and we do that with a number of different ways. We're made up of different stakeholder groups. We have 6, including the other category, oil and gas, telecom, and excavation. We work with the Investigation and Compliance Manager to provide guidance and processes. He will bring us issues. We will help him in any way we can, and we'll also create policies and guidelines for him. If necessary, we'll also conduct a hearing, and I'll get more into how we've come in our priorities to operate this. And we'll also work with the education and training staff to uncover issues and provide opportunities for members to educate themselves. So early in the year, the Operations and Compliance Committee was invited to join the board on a strategic planning session, and we found this a fantastic opportunity for us to start aligning some of our priorities and work together on some of the initiatives. So what we have up there is the 4 priorities that the Compliance Committee took away from that strategy session. Number 1, of course, is the late locates. Number 2, feedback 360 input, and I'll break these down a little further going on. Address the emergency abuse and the logistics of a hearing process. We also have some vested interest with the Operations Committee on a few of the priorities as well, and you'll see them there. The improved 360 reporting that's been mentioned, TELDIG, and vague tickets. Now, I'll leave that to the Operations Committee to expand on those, but we have a vested interest in working together to see that these happen. So our 2016 priorities start off with late locates. They continue to be the overwhelming driver of our compliance activities. They will be for the foreseeable future, so we've gone about to create some policies and guidelines in which we'll release out to the membership so they can see how we will address these and what we'll consider late and such. So they'll be posted up on the One Call website once they've passed through the system. The compliance department has done an outstanding job so far of resolving all the late locate issues, near perfect. So they, while we're working through this process and deciding on what the parameters should be, they've done an incredible job on resolving all the issues that come in for complaints. We're also working on different policies and procedures that are going to help provide guidance to the membership. They will all be posted on the website. We need to be very transparent and provide guidance to members so that they can succeed, and they will all be up there in short course. The Feedback 360 compliance, many members remain inconsistent in their use of the Feedback 360. Certainly not their fault. The Feedback 360 was never really designed for what we're asking for it. We've been working with operations to try and improve that, add more layers, and then we'll also publish a document that says how we want this to be used. And the benefit of that, of course, will be improved reporting back to members on their own performance. So look forward to that. The next one is our emergency abuse that Ben had mentioned. Since the beginning, that's been the #1 topic for the compliance to work with. Steve Waugh has worked very diligently with the call center to improve the process for calling in emergencies. We have dedicated contact center people that will take the calls. He will be brought in to review them as well. And you can see by the numbers, we've had a year-over-year improvement. We still have room to grow in there. Compliance has participated in webinars with Jeff and gone out and done invite breakfast meetings to have excavators come, and we try to explain how to use that process. Still a lot of work, but very successful in bringing that number down. And the last one is the logistics of a hearing process. So to become transparent, we needed to come up with a plan, a very clear definition so that members knew when they were in the compliance process what the next steps were and what their options were. So we developed a 4-step process that's very straightforward. If you get it, you'll know exactly where you are in the system. And of course, the last step would be a hearing to be called. We've now published a document that explains how the hearing process is going to take place, what the options are along the whole step. That, of course, will be posted on the website when that is expanded. And that's your compliance report for this year.
Thanks very much, Gord. The work of the committees is very important, and I do appreciate the work the Compliance Committee has done. As you may appreciate, it's not an easy task. It certainly has its challenges. So thank you, Gord, for your work. Next, the report from the Operations Committee. Paul Birch actually is the chair of the Operations Committee. I understand he was unable to make it today, and Tracy Teed will be doing the report instead of Paul. Tracy?
So the priorities at a glance are listed up here. These priorities came out of a strat planning session that was held collaboratively with the Board of Directors, as well the Compliance Committee and Operations Committee members. We also incorporated feedback from the broader membership, the excavator community, as well as the locate service providers to come up with these. They primarily focus on two main themes, which is one, improve productivity so that we can meet the mandate of the 5-day turnaround time with an accurate locate, as well as improved reporting and clarity and transparency to the broader community as to where the status of their locates are. I'm going to go into more detail on the individual initiatives and how they kind of help out to meet those overall goals. The map selection notification, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one because I believe Katie has a presentation that follows me that will go into much more detail on this one. Pre-engineering requests, we want to come up with a better process for dealing with these and being able to differentiate them from normal standard requests. Project versus non-project locates, this really gets to the recognition that large, long cycle, project type locate requests are very different from your standard residential locate requests. Like building a fence is very different from extending a highway. And the requirements for those locate requests are different. As well, delivering on those locate requests require a different process. And so differentiating between the two will help meet those goals. TELDIG enhancements, this is an ongoing thing that we've been focusing on. The Compliance Committee has made requests for additional statuses in terms of improving the clarity and transparency of the status of a locate. We're working on making the notes and comments field visible to all so that you can see the communication that has occurred between the locate provider, the member, and the excavator, all in the comments section. Hopefully we'll have that by later this year. Vague tickets addresses primarily web-based tickets where we're looking at enhancing and fine-tuning the screening of the locate requests such that they kick out to an actual operator more of the vague locate requests so that when it gets to the member or it gets to the locate provider that it's actually actionable right away. That's the end of the update from operations.
Thanks very much, Tracy. The Operations Committee, if you do have items or questions on the day-to-day operations and that you're having difficulty with, certainly staff is a good avenue to bring that forth. But the Operations Committee is also a good avenue to bring that forth because they really are the voice of the membership in terms of helping Ontario One Call improve the day-to-day operations and how it affects you when you do your work. So feel free at any time to contact members of the Operations Committee to give your feedback, and I'm sure that they can bring your concerns forward to the organization. So lastly, I'd like to call on Katie Gottsman. She's the Director of Operations of Ontario One Call, and Katie's going to give us a presentation on the future plans, system, and service improvements.
Thank you, Shelley. Good morning, everyone. As Shelley mentioned, I'm Katie Gottsman, Director of Operations, and today I'd like to chat with you about the future developments of Ontario One Call. These include technological, staffing, and communication plans. With technology, we're always looking to improve at Ontario One Call and evolve. Some of these items that we're working on this year and into 2017 include map selection notification, mandatory fields, and a contractor bridge. With map selection notification, essentially what we are doing is changing the way in which Ontario One Call notifies its members. It will now be based on a drawing on a satellite image provided by an excavator regarding their dig location. The data will be sent into our system, and based on that geography, the system will decide whether members will be impacted. This, of course, means that our members will have to provide better mapping, detailed mapping, in order for them to reap the benefits of this project. With mandatory fields, we're looking to always improve the quality of the information that we receive from the excavator. In conjunction with the map selection notification, we're of course making map selection a mandatory piece. Within 2016, near the end, a map selection will be mandatory within our web portal over our satellite image. This will not actually impact anything until we release the map selection notification in 2017. Additionally, we're adding what we call today location and extent of work, but it will be renamed. But what we're looking for is more information about the excavation. So a little bit beyond the actual address or the dig depth and things like that. The more that we get out of an excavator, the better we're able to provide information to the locator or the member, and they're hopefully able to better provide more accurate and timely locates. Finally, a much discussed in the past option is the dig depth. Our goal is that by 2016 in December, dig depth will be a mandatory requirement for excavators to provide. This will be the maximum vertical distance that they will be digging. In terms of the contractor bridge, for any of you that are not familiar with this, it's essentially a tool that allows a user's or an excavator's ticket management system to speak with Ontario One Call system, thus producing a ticket. That's a bit of a high-level description. What we're looking to do with this is make it a web-based product, allow for it to have a map selection because it will become mandatory for all sources, and minimize the limitations that it currently has, which include the inability to relocate, correct, or cancel a ticket as necessary. We're looking to make it a full experience as if they were using the web portal. Staffing. Well, we know that with insourcing comes opportunity and enhancements, and we've done this across the board, but we're looking further. We have introduced 2 new roles. One is the Quality Assurance Specialist, and another is the Client Services Specialist. With Quality Assurance, we're of course looking to make sure that our customer service is top-notch. We're making sure that the information we provide and that the information that we receive is of good quality and accuracy. This role will also allow us to look deeper into our own processes, because as we listen to the contractors and excavators, ask questions to the agents, we'll be able to assimilate that information and see if there's something not quite right, or if anything needs tweaking or changing or improving. This is a great way to be able to consolidate all of that information in one department. With our Client Services Specialist, we've created a role that is excavator-facing, but one that goes a little bit beyond our agents, in which we'll take the time to discuss with the excavator if they have escalations, concerns, require additional guidance, because we all know that everybody wants a chance to call in quickly and have a good service within 5 minutes, but there are those times that you need a little bit of an extra guidance. So this department will do just that. In terms of our communication plans, we're well aware that the changes that we make, like a few of the ones discussed earlier about technology, have great impact on our members, our excavators, and the remaining stakeholders. With this, Ontario One Call takes communication strategies by discussing the majority of impacting issues with the Operations Committee. On large scale, we provide large-scale discussions and emails, as well as in-person, one-on-one communication, depending on the level of impact and comprehension that is required with any change. Of course, the larger the project, the larger the impact, the longer we need to provide this information, to communicate, to train. So we're very mindful of our timelines. For training, to sum this up, I guess, we will be training on everything that I've discussed today with technology and anything into the future. Ontario One Call provides webinars. We have online videos that will continue to improve, and of course, always in person by an appointment. Anybody can reach out to our member services department, our client services, which will be coming up, and we will be able to manage any situations from there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Katie. I echo Ben's thanks to the staff, and particularly Katie's team. It has been a remarkable year moving and transitioning to the new call center, and certainly we couldn't have done it without their excellent efforts and their excellent work. And I'm sure you'll be impressed when you visit the call center later today. We're not at the stage of any other business. A couple things before I ask if there's any other business from the floor. As mentioned, we will have an open plenary session just after we close the formal proceedings of this particular, the AGM. And you can ask some open questions of Ben, myself, or Len. I would like to remind you and invite you to the opening of our facility at 104 Cooper Drive in Guelph. It's about 10 minutes down Highway 6, not very far from here. If you need a map, I know that there were some maps that were at the desk when you walked in. Feel free to grab one. The event starts around 11:30, so we have lots of time. And the formal proceedings with the dignitaries are around noon. I know a couple of the dignitaries will not be able to stay too long, so that will be our timing for that particular event. So please join us. So those are my two items of other business. Is there any other business from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to the formal adjournment of the AGM business. So I'd like to thank you for coming to the AGM today and your participation. And a special thank you to Ontario One Call staff who put this together and helped the meeting run smoothly. It certainly turned out to be a good venue and a good meeting. So shall I have a motion from the floor to declare 2016 Ontario One Call AGM adjourned? Dan's number is first, Corinne's second. Please raise your hands if you're in favor. And I presume there's nobody not in favor. It's carried, and I declare the meeting closed. And so we will now move to the open plenary session, and we're going to ask Len McMillan to come and join us.
So just a few housekeeping matters. The centerpieces are ones that we put together, so they are free to take home. So argue amongst yourself at the table to take it home. I have a couple more things to say. I want to thank Kim Smith and Corey Officer. They're the two people, with a lot of help from other people, who put this great event together. I did absolutely nothing. This is my first visit to the Hanlon Convention Center, so all the credit really belongs to Kim and Corey, so let's give them a round of applause. For the plenary session, for those who haven't done it before, this is something that's pretty unique to Ontario One Call. It's really an open forum, and you can put any question you like to myself, to Shelley, to Len, and we'll give you the best answer we can. Jeff Hitchcock in the back, he'll put his arm up. He's the roving mic guy, so feel free to wave him down. And I think that's it. Oh, and don't forget we have a GPS warning for going to 104 Cooper. Do pick up a copy of the map that's at the front desk. Your GPS will often lead you astray because many don't have Cooper Drive. It's a brand new building in a brand new street. And many might suggest that you can turn off the Hanlon Parkway. That's not the case. When you're going south on Highway 6, you have to get off at Laird Road. So check the map. Don't keep on going and try to turn right into the berm that's there. Otherwise, you'll just have to turn all the way back once you hit the 401.
Locate your car.
So just that proviso as well. So I'll let you put your hands up. Jeff is happy to take any questions. we talked a lot about today. Who wants to ask about minimum boundary rectangle or minimum selection notification mapping? That's an issue. This is accountability. Silence means perfection.
I'll be out of here real quick.
So, well, I'll start with one thing. Oh, there we go.
My name is Catherine Clegg. I work for the City of Greater Sudbury. Lately, we've been having some issues. Our dispatch has been calling in tickets, and the Ontario One Call operator changes the cross streets because I guess your mapping conflicts with our mapping. I just want to know what we can do on our end to provide you guys, I guess, with better mapping. I know I saw Chris Neat here. He works for Planview. He's our mapping. They're our mapping provider.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what we can do on our end to, just for instance, we had one street that said it was Caveridge Court, and the Ontario One Call operator changed it to Chiveridge Court, and our dispatcher kept calling me, and I would call them, and then she would call me, and I would call them. Like, it happened on a bunch of tickets, and our tickets ended up being suspended. And I guess another part of my question is, how do we get our tickets unsuspended after the mapping issue has been resolved? So I don't know if that's something that we have to do on our end with our working with our mapping company and then to you, or if it's something that needs to be fixed within your mapping system. I'm just not sure of the
So on the
which it is.
on the unsuspending tickets, I do urge you to talk to Katie Gottsman and that team. They know it far better than I do. In terms of the mapping, I'll answer it in more of a general sense. You know, we work closely with Planview to improve our mapping and update the mapping. We do get frequent updates on streets, so there shouldn't necessarily be a conflict between the Sudbury map and what we have at One Call. And if there are things that do need to be reconciled, do talk to our member services, because that's the type of thing
Yeah,
they look
because
for.
Sarah has been very helpful.
Oh, that's great to
I
hear.
know her extension like directly. I just call her now.
I'm glad you can get that kind of direct line as well to us.
You should talk to Katie.
So I guess it's going through us, then providing a better base map to.
Yeah, our base map, and Mr. Philpott's back there. He's from Planview. Now, you guys have our base map, right? That comes from you guys?
In this case, it sounds like a street name that was possibly incorrect in the One Call system compared to how you had called it in. Right. So we try to maintain the One Call street data throughout the province. We do an update for every region once a year, in some cases multiple times. We also do ad hoc updates. So if we receive street name changes or new streets from a region, we will incorporate those in the next update. I was just asking Chris, maybe put him on the spot here, do we receive your street data from any open data or data sharing agreement? Okay. Right. So what we'll do is I've got your info down. We'll follow up. And I guess this can open this up to everyone else as well. The more data we get from the municipalities and regions through data sharing agreements, the better the mapping at One Call is going to be for everyone. Absolutely. Yep, GIS at Planview, that's at planview.ca. That's our One Call address, and we will update that. Typically, we do ad hoc updates in every 2 weeks. So.
Further questions?
Everything must be going well.
I'm sure Eric wants to ask about unassumed subdivisions. You can ask, yes, feel free.
Good morning. My name is Gus Saad. I'm with the Regional Municipality of York. To stay on the mapping issue, Last year, we were having issues of receiving notifications for digs that were not actually on regional roads. They were linked to one of our regional roads. We brought this issue up, and you guys said it was going to be looked into. Has there been any progress along that line?
So without speaking specifically to York's issue, one thing we're doing, and this is what Enrico asked me about at the break, is what was previously called minimum boundary rectangle, now called minimum selection map selection notification, Katie Gottsman, MSN. I don't particularly care for the acronym, so if anyone can come up with a better one, we're all ears. Essentially what you've identified is the nature of the mapping, which is antiquated in its approach. It's basically lines and segments that intersect with each other, and when there's one excavation on a street, it basically activates and notifies all the connecting street, irregardless of the distance between those two streets, because the system just is a grid of lines. It doesn't understand distance. What we want to do, and to put it just in very layman's terms, is insert a layer of mapping that has latitude and longitude, that understands distance, so that when there is an excavation on a non-regional road, and let's say it requires a buffer of 10 meters, that will now become geographically based. So that area, a 10-meter radius, any infrastructure there will be notified. But if it's down the street from a regional road, that regional road's not going to get notified. So that will help reduce what you've identified, which is really over-notification. That's a slightly longer-term project. I think that's more 2017 to roll out. Katie Gottsman's been doing a lot of work, and the operations committee has been contributing to that as well. So that's something we're actively working on. Tony.
Expand on that. So if, even though it doesn't go on a regional road, but if the regions have easements where they have infrastructure that crosses non-regional roads, they should still get the request for the locates. Because, for example, the York region has water mains, forest mains that go in various areas. If that mapping is for a street that the region doesn't own, they still have to be notified about that area. Or how does that get handled?
In that case, if there was an easement on a non-regional road and that's the road construction was happening, they'd be notified regardless, whether you have the segment notification or the MSN geographic notification. Where it will help out is no matter where that regional infrastructure is, whether it's a regional road, an easement off the regional road, or in the middle of a farmer's field, it'll now look at it through the lens of distance. So it won't think about what are intersections and streets that intersect that might be 5 meters away or 500 meters away. So in that way, it becomes a much more intuitive system. And if it's on a regional road or a non-regional road, the only thing that really matters is distance, not who owns the road.
Shane Beeren, City of Brampton. We have an ongoing issue in unassumed subdivisions. We have lots of construction going on at all times. And what the issue is the regional water mains are in service once people move into the take occupancy of the homes. And when we try to get locates, the region is not the owner of, they have not assumed ownership of those water mains yet. So they say, we can't give you a locate. The developer says, oh, the region's running that water main, they're supplying customers, that's their problem. And so we have all these tickets that just sit in limbo forever until subdivisions are assumed, and that takes years and years. What is the legality of this, and what can we do to speed this process up to get the region and the developers to play ball together?
So this has come up before, and let's introduce Vanessa Ray from the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services. Certainly the ministry has been interested in this question too, because it does come up from both sides, from the developer side, from the municipality side. It's tricky on our end because, of course, we're doing things in the public right-of-way, and one of the questions is what gets reported to Ontario One Call in terms of what's installed. So think of a joint trenching. The gas line goes in, the telecom lines go in, and those entities pretty much update their mapping right away. So there's no issue notifying that. Where it becomes problematic is no one will necessarily register the water. The developer may not register the water, the municipality is not going to register the water, maybe even for 3 years, until they assume that roadway. So it becomes very difficult, because we may not even know it's there, let alone who to inform. Ideally, what would happen is that as part of the development permit or development charges, that issue would be resolved between the developer and the municipality. From our end, it would be a bit tricky to have a bunch of numbered companies join and unjoin as developments get done, but that's not an impossibility.
From one call's point of view, is it because the region keeps telling us that until we assume it, we have no legal rights to provide locates? Is that true? Can I come back to the region and say, no, you know what, I was at a one call meeting and they said, go ahead and give us the locates? Because they're standing on their hands saying, we're not going to do it.
Yeah. And that's an issue of interpretation, and you know, we can provide an opinion, but it's not necessarily one the municipalities will accept.
Right.
And I guess that yours is more of an upper tier, lower tier issue.
Exactly.
It's, you know, it's a bit befuddling in a sense that you may have an entity that isn't the party who installed it, but it's their product going through that pipe, and they bill the customer at the end of it.
Right.
But they say it's not theirs.
Right, where Hydro and is doing the exact same thing. The stuff's in, they're accepting locates the second it's
Yeah.
energized.
And same with gas and
Right.
telecom.
It's only the region that says, oh, and they say that we don't have the legal right, that they don't have the legal right to provide locates because they haven't assumed it yet.
Yeah, and that's the argument, that you generally have to locate what you own. We don't own it, so it's not our job to own it.
Right.
But
They pretend that they would locate it if they legally could.
well,
They say they legally can.
if the proposition was that if there was an agreement between the developer and the municipality that it's going to get registered on Ontario One Call, the locate service provider for the municipality will do the work, and that work will just get billed to the developer, maybe that's the ideal solution.
Yeah, we're just looking for something that will work. So.
Hi, Eric Boer from Halton Region, so we are an upper tier next door to Peel Region. I think part of the positions of upper tiers is it is a challenge to accommodate all the locates that started coming on board 2 years ago. So I think what I've seen today and what I've seen over the last 6 months, I've kind of gone from one of the biggest critics of the way things have been implemented to now being one of the biggest advocates, because what we saw earlier today and with the business plan is there is a framework if everyone's participating and rowing in the same direction to get where we want to go. So I think with the framework that we see provided today, we can work with Ontario One Call, we can work with our stakeholders and the province, because I think with the issue you have at hand, excuse me, is it's not Ontario One Call's issue per se, that the legislation wasn't written in a way that it anticipated that municipal services get built different than the energy or gas. So they have pre-approved contractors, they do the work, it's done in accordance with how they expect it to be built. The developer is somewhat at the mercy of other utilities and how those works get constructed. When it comes to municipalities, we're not restrictive in how our utilities get built. And so we have to do an extra check and balance at the end of the process to make sure it got built, because we don't have the checks and balances at the front end that the other utilities do. So we have to accept these are the systems that are in place, and we now have to work with everyone to figure out what it looks like. So I kind of see two models. One is we make 10,000 individual developers register and unregister with One Call, or municipalities step in and basically become a middle agent. But we don't want to do the work. We don't want to be liable for the work. And so if the developers can agree that a locate service provider can be automatically ported the ticket that the municipality receives, and we recover an administrative cost. Locates aren't free. someone is doing the work and someone is paying the bill, and we have a responsibility to taxpayers. So I think we have two models. We either have municipalities engaged in the process as part of the middle person, or not. And to not would really be cumbersome on Ontario One Call. So I think that the framework we have here, the Operations Committee is pretty well positioned to try and start tackling this. That's my opinion. But
Further questions? Tony's go.
I just want to make a comment as a representative of the sorry, I don't even like the word construction, I yell loud. As a representative of the excavator community, we find that difficult because what that creates is a problem for us. When we call one call, the objective is that we go there, it's all located. The municipality, once we turn that water main on and we pass it off and it gets passed for potability and it can go to the people, it's now their responsibility. My question to the regions that are in the room, if there was a Walkerton issue in that stretch of water main, who's responsible, who's liable? You are. So at that point, as soon as we turn that water, we're not allowed to touch the valves anymore. So as soon as we pass it off to you, it should automatically become your responsibility because you're liable. You want to be in control of that main because if something happens, you are liable. So I don't understand this thing of we're not responsible until we get it because it's tied up in something. If it's a money issue, like you said, straighten that out right away. Get that done, and that's something that somebody should come up with a bylaw. I understand the compliance committee, they can only do so much over here. Our committee can only do so much. But that's got to be something coming from up, higher government to say, as soon as you touch out, as soon as you take over that water main, you restrict the contractors from touching the valves, touching anything. They can't touch anymore. It should be your response. Same thing with sanitary sewers. If the thought process is that it's not the responsibility of the contractor, it's not yours until it comes out of the subdivision agreement. Maybe the agreements have to be reworded, which is what you said earlier. We can't pump into that sanitary sewer and just put anything we want into it. We're still under regulations. We have to be careful how we pump into it. We have to get permits to take water. If it's contaminated material, we have to get a permit to have a permit to discharge. All those regulations. So it's kind of we're being told to follow all the rules, but when it comes to the safety of the water main and the sewer, we're being told it's not our responsibility yet. And that's the difficulty that we as contractors are finding out there when we call for locates. Somebody come and tell us what's in the ground, because it's not always the same contractor going back as the guy that installed it. If ABC Construction puts the main in, does the whole sewer, and then somebody comes in to do the next set of water main or do the services or whatever the case may be, it's a different group. They need that located. Without that ability, we are in a difficult situation, making it unsafe for the public, which is what the intentions of one call is to make it safe for staff and public. That's a confusing factor from our end, and we really appreciate it if you guys did some will resolve that.
I would like to comment on what you said too. I obviously work for a smaller municipality where our locate volume and requests are not as high. But we have like the unassumed, like the 2-year development development owned period. But we've kind of taken the approach that we will own it someday. So we usually go out and locate it. But we are still under the impression that if while during excavation it breaks and you're still in that 2-year development contract with us, that you guys have to pay to fix it. We go out and locate because we will own it eventually, and you're right to say that is our water being pumped through there. Like that house is metered, we're collecting revenue. And Sudbury has just kind of, I don't want to say given up, because we haven't given up. We've just decided that we will go locate it, because and it's mostly the developers that call in the locate saying, I need the water main located, and we're like, didn't you put the water main in? Like, don't you know where it is? But at the same time, we know that we will own it, and then if we ever find discrepancies while we're out there, and actually on these development locates, we usually send our internal guy so that we know if there's any mapping records, like if there's any discrepancies with the maps or our as-builts, we can then fix them before they lead to a bigger problem. So that has become our solution in Sudbury. But obviously Sudbury is population-wise a lot smaller, and our volumes are a lot smaller. But geographically, we're way bigger, so we have our own difficulties there. But like I said, we're just under the assumption that we will own it eventually, so we might as well locate it now and find out if there are any issues with our maps, and then we can get it rectified now rather than fix a break later. So I know that solution doesn't work for everybody, but it's been working for us.
We're not asking to change the maintenance period on it.
Yeah,
That's understandable,
yeah.
and that's there. It's just like, if we're against the law, we have a regulations telling us to call for locates.
Yeah.
So I can't dig without a locate. So if no one comes to locate that water main, I can't dig. And somebody has to be responsible for the locate that is being done. That's the problem that we're in. We're being told we're coming north, that's it. We're moving in. Thank you.
So I think I need to chime in here. Rico Sclera, Town of Oakville. So certainly unassumed subdivisions is going to be an ongoing issue, and really each infrastructure owner has to sort of deal with it in the way that they feel is best, and in the interest of maintaining the services to the area, especially once residents and facility owners come in and start using those services. So I think certainly I've heard it already. The subdivision agreement is a good place to start. We haven't done any changes yet in the town of Oakville, but we are looking at sort of what's the best way moving forward of dealing with locates in these areas. The process that we sort of develop right now is that we're holding the developer accountable for those locates until he provides as-built to us. Once those as-built are provided to us, we'll then put them through the one-call system, and then we'll assume responsibility for the locates. And getting that within the subdivision agreement is something that we're moving towards. And again, it's something that it's not perfect, and there's always a period where the developer has to struggle to try to find the as-built drawings so he can do locates for himself, because he has a number of contractors coming in, and sometimes the development area can look like a war zone. But I think putting that responsibility on him until he can formally transmit those locates to us, I think that's a good sort of, in our minds, a good best practice to follow.
So I got one question over here.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Morrison, City of Brampton. So as we're talking about unassumed developments, I kind of want to talk about capital projects, because it's kind of similar where we're passing who is in charge of the locates. So as we write our contracts for roadway widening jobs, we tell the electrical contractor that they're responsible for the locates. So they call in their initial locate and from Ontario One Call, and our locator right now will go out and locate the entire project for them. Once they receive all of their locates, we give them drawings of what's here, and now you're responsible and we're hands off. So our problem is over notification with Ontario One Call. So we tell Ontario One Call, hey, this is a capital works project, contact EC Power, whoever, like for the responsibility, not our locator. And then we get, EC Power is getting called for backyard, like blocks away. You know, they're getting overwhelmed with the locate demand for them. So it's not fair, because we're not asking them locate backyards 5 blocks away. We're saying that locate within that project, because there's so many excavators working for that project that how do we say to them, like, you know, everybody in that, like all the contractors in there, you need to contact this excavator, but don't contact our, because we're getting over notification. So our locator will get called out for it, and the locator for that project will get called out, and there might be a project down the street that's a different locator that's getting called out. So it's overwhelming, and it's too much of a demand on all of us. So how do we fix that?
There's a lot of things that can be put onto that question. First is, capital projects and what you might just deem long-term projects. And certainly on the operations committee side, that's an area that they're giving a lot of time and attention to. In the perfect world, every project would be exactly 150 meters long and would correspond to how locate service providers bill. And, you know, be 15 to 30 days. That's not the reality of the world. One thing we're doing to help, and you see this with the web ticket, is introducing that Google type map. And that'll be mandatory towards the end of the year. That will force excavators to very specifically identify where excavation areas are. And both on the members' end, if you're receiving tickets, or the LSP's end, if you receive them directly, you can distinguish between requests for that project and requests where you may have been notified just because those segments touch and it's nowhere near the major project. And as we discussed before, moving to the MSN with the latitude-longitude mapping, that creates an area where you're going to have a very specific geographic area dealt with. So someone down the street who's installing a pool, you know, who lives down the street from a major arterial road with an LRT project on it, from that person's future pool, only 10 meters or 20 meters radius will be notified. And so you won't get the major projects getting locate notifications for things outside of that area. So just over on that side, do people on that side have questions?
I'm Dave McBride from Quadra Communications. We're a telephone utility just like Bell. I'm looking for some updated information. I was involved many years ago when the Common Ground Alliance started forming in Ontario. There was a lot of questions come up at that time, and I'm just curious how some of the answers are resolved over the years. I've been out of the picture a little bit as far as administrative goes. One of the questions that was important then was policing, and I really haven't heard anything since then. Who's in charge of the rules of if somebody breaks the rules? You know, if a contractor cuts through things and that, who's the one who decides the blame? You know, you didn't do something right. Who's policing the industry?
Sure, so this is a good time to talk about enforcement and compliance. We have a compliance staff, and Steve Waugh and Rob Matthews are here today. And you heard earlier from Gord Campbell, who's the chair of the compliance committee. One thing that's really notable about how our regime is structured versus other jurisdictions, we have really what you might call self-directed enforcement, in-house compliance. Basically, it's a committee of Ontario One Call that sits in judgment of members who are in violation of the rules. And that can be also appealed to a committee of the board. So really, all the compliance activities meant to occur in-house. That's different than a lot of other models where you might rely on, for example, the TSSA, an outside enforcement agency to enforce things. We don't have that. In some states, you actually have to rely on the police to enforce one-call legislation. We don't have that there. So in terms of compliance, that ball's really in our court, and that's what the compliance committee has been working on over the last while to establish the procedures and policies to ensure exactly what you talked about, which is holding members and excavators accountable for non-compliance with the Act. It's still a work in progress. I think that's a fair thing to say. But certainly there's a committee working on it and a staff there that deal with compliance issues, both large and small. So it's something that we are working on. And certainly being involved in ORCGA for a long time, as you have and I have as well, that's one of the things that needs to come to fruition to really achieve the original vision of what we talked about 10 years ago.
Thank you. Also, there was a department in Ontario One Call back then too. It was supposed to be a trouble reporting. Did that ever continue? For example, if there was a job site accident, something was cut, it came back, it was supposed to be like a history reporting.
So when there's a damage in an area, report it to all the other members in that area?
No, if on a dig site there was damage created, then it was supposed to be reported back to Ontario One Call, so it could be put in like an archive of history.
So mandatory damage reporting is actually one of those open questions. I think if you go back to when we were doing the regulations, 2013, 2014, that was one of the issues that was, was on the list to be looked at later. As it stands now, we don't have a mandatory damage reporting system. There remains the ORCGA dirt reporting tool, which is a voluntary system. And one thing that One Call as an organization and the membership as a whole will have to look at, not immediately, but in the relatively near future, is mandatory damage reporting. Right now, there's different regimes in places. Gas utilities have to report certain things to the TSSA through the Ministry of Environment Spills Center. I know that's a costly process for the TSSA. There may be different reporting requirements to other safety agencies. So perhaps there's an opportunity to unify those processes with one single means of reporting damages and notifying all the relevant regulators of that. And one iteration that could come of that is when we receive a damage report in an area, it can essentially function as a notification or almost like a quasi-excavation request where we can also notify every other member in that area who has infrastructure that there's been a damage near their infrastructure, which might lead them to check out their own infrastructure and see if it was also damaged as part of that incident.
Thank you.
I work for a small municipality, so sometimes we call in locates, and a lot of times we're doing locates. About a month ago, we called in a locate, and we specifically said what township it was in. We still got all the cross-border locates. Hopefully that's going to change.
Yeah, and that relates to the issue we were talking before, which is, especially when you're a small municipality, you probably don't have a lot of intersections, you'll have long county roads. And suddenly one excavation on one county road for a very small project will notify enormous lengths of road just because they happen to be connected to that one road. So with the more latitude, longitude-based mapping, that issue should disappear. So the only reason you'd have something that would cross into another township or cross into another county is because it's so close to the border of that other area that the radius would make it spill over, essentially. So that would deal with a lot of what you might call cross-border issues. They happen a lot in urban areas too. Think of Toronto, which has Steeles Avenue as a major border and shares that with different municipalities. Excavations on one side of the street will notify the other side of the street too. So that's also an area where you can double the notifications and create an over-notification scenario.
I'm Carla Finley, Town of Collingwood. I have some questions about 360 feedback. First, I guess, what's the long-term plan, or what's the real intent behind 360 feedback? Is it to monitor the 5-day turnaround for infrastructure owners, or are excavators using it to look where their locates are? What is the long-term plan?
So that's a very good question, and I'll give the basic one-call answer. And if Jeff Hitchcock could bring the microphone over to Gord Campbell, he's the guru of the long-term vision of Feedback 360. Remember, first off, that the TELDIG system, Feedback 360, is really a ticket management system. It's not really built for some of the purposes that we use, which is to recover information and produce reports. That's a very cumbersome thing in the system. From a very specific, narrow one-call point of view, we need Feedback 360 to know when locates are completed so we can verify compliance with the 5 business day requirement. That's a very specific thing we need to monitor compliance. There's different visions as well and different ideas, and Gord can unpackage some of those about what Feedback 360 can be and should be and who should be using it for what.
You really answered that quite thoroughly. We discovered right from the beginning that it was not fulfilling the need that we need to pass information back to members. It was designed as a signaling method just to say the status of the ticket had changed. So we've been working with the operations committee to add more layers in there so that the reporting can be more informational to the excavator. Yes, we want to encourage everybody to use it as their first method of finding out the status of their locate, but we realize that there's not enough statuses in there to really report very well. So unfortunately, we have to wait on those enhancements to come in. It's a mandatory thing in the regulations. We still want people to use it, but then we'll also have to provide guidance on how we interpret that information so we can all report the same. So the end result is we'll collect that information and members will be able to judge their own performance based on that and hopefully find and fix their issues on it. But yes, it's to give information to the excavator about the status of their locate. I don't know how much farther we can push the system. It was certainly, it's going to have to take TELDIG to allow us because it basically transmits very little information.
So then is there any thought into upgrading the system to make it something more?
Well, TELDIG's the only supplier of that, so unless they can provide us another vision, we have very limited set that we can do it. And the other problem is each individual member owns that module, so they really can decide what they want it to do. So we have to provide guidance to them that these are the minimum requirements that you have to put in place. But certainly they can decide what they want to send back.
And
so,
TELDIG has, I know from Katie and her discussions with TELDIG, they're looking at the long overdue massive system overhaul. But that's something that's going to take a few years, so it's not going to instantly resolve things. One of the challenges with adding fields to Feedback 360, one is a technical issue, which is those of you who've worked with customer information systems or workload management systems know that the older it is, the slower and more cumbersome it is. And also if you have a highly customized system, the harder it is to work with and manipulate. This is a really old system that's very, very customized. So it's sort of the worst of both worlds in terms of producing new reports. And the other challenge too with Feedback 360 fields, you know, you can add different fields and you can almost track a locate like you would a parcel that comes through the mail. And that's very attractive. But one of the natural limitations is the member or LSP's ability to update information at every step of the way. We have a lot of challenges now with people just doing the basic Feedback 360. And when we produce reports, all those tickets appear as non-compliant. The challenge here is if we want to build a better product, we have to make sure that the members are willing and interested to use it and they see that value as well.
One correction on your statement. You mentioned the members own TELDIG, so I think that would have been a more true statement 3 years ago when there was 300 members and many of them, most of them used TELDIG. Then we brought on 300 new members who don't use it. So now less than 50% of your members do not use TELDIG.
that's fine, but the signaling system, I may have called it just 360, but all of the software packages have a signaling ability about them.
But there's 300 members who don't have an inherent system in your organization that functions like TELDIG. Web services to serve out the function and bridge that gap. So, you know, Bill Lake was a paradigm shift. I don't think everyone realized what a paradigm shift it was and how significant those impacts are. I think we have a better appreciation for that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I just had one So we are trying very hard to comply with 360. So that's why I bring it up. If we're trying this hard to comply with it, I just think it's a pretty antiquated system, and I'd just like to see more to it, I guess, another value to it. And then this week, or a couple weeks ago, we also found out that we had some locates that were out of compliance, but they were locates that had been canceled. We weren't aware that we also had to 360 those. So we just found that out, now we're doing that. But I couldn't remember, are we also being charged for canceled locates?
That's a great question. I may look to my operations folks for that
I just
one.
couldn't remember if that was.
In terms of canceled tickets, the ticket will not be charged to the member as long as it falls within a few days of the ticket being processed originally. So if it gets canceled, let's say 32 days after, there will be a charge because you would have seen it on your previous month's bill. But when it comes to, let's say, an excavator changes their mind, or you can't come to a negotiation time for a locate, or whatever the situation may be, you will not get charged for that request.
Further questions?
We are being charged for updates, right? Yes, updates, yes. But not charged for corrections? Not charged for corrections.
If there are no more questions, I actually have a question for the membership, because this has been a vexing issue, and it's one that's come up a number of times, including the media, which are political signs during election time. We all know, and especially municipalities who have specific signage laws as well, know that in a very short period of time, an enormous number of lawn signs go up. The little wired framed ones are probably very low risk, but a lot of them are hammered into major intersections right next to electrical boxes and telephone poles. And, you know, I used to do politics, and I am guilty of hammering many wooden stakes and metal posts immediately adjacent to probably a lot of buried utilities. We do get that question about how do members want to handle these things. Some members, when you sort of put that question to committee, say, well, they should be treated like regular locates. So you would expect the political campaigns to call, wait 5 business days, and you would deliver within that statutory time frame, which is probably not a realistic thing to expect of a political campaign, probably not a realistic thing to expect from members, considering how many signs go up in such a short period of time. So let me put it to the membership if you have any views or insights into that.
I just wonder if it could be set up like an ALA, because lots of times we have provisions in our ALAs that allow for sidewalk staking and things like that. So, I mean, you could, I guess, offer each party in the race an ALA with your utilities during that time of the election. I don't know how it would work for less deep and stuff, because I deal obviously in water and sewer, and I'm not really that concerned with a stake in the grass, but somebody like Bell or with Fiber Op or Rogers or somebody like that might have more of a concern with it. But maybe you could set up some sort of like campaign ALA or something to be built into the system during an election year, or during or you could break it off to specific municipalities, whoever happens to be having an election at the time.
Well, what about some shallow berry infrastructure owners, some gas utilities, some telecom? What do you think of this issue and the risks it may or may not pose?
Stacy Ricketts, Natural Resource Gas. So my question would be, if they did damage something and they didn't get a locate, who would be responsible for that?
Good question. The political campaigns, those organizations are legal entities unto themselves that exist for the period of the campaign. So, you know, it's a volunteer for the campaign. I'm not sure if they're somehow indemnified by the campaign or if they're acting as an individual. The tricky part is if they hit one of your gas lines, they'll probably just leave and not leave evidence. And that's one of the biggest risks. Plus, these campaigns basically exist for 4 weeks and then disappear as legal entities. So holding people accountable is tough to do. And even if they knew that there were risks around, gas and telecom and electrical connections, they don't necessarily have the means to protect themselves or make good judgments because they don't know where these things are.
So they would be treated, in my vision, they should be treated the same as a homeowner that doesn't have knowledge or, it would be the same idea. Most homeowners don't understand what's under the ground, how to work.
And a comparable example is real estate signs. So whether it's one in your lawn for a home sale or a big one at an intersection, you are fully expected to call for locates. You're a professional organization and we demand that of real estate entities. And that's perfectly sensible because there's enough timing when they put up a listing to coordinate that work. Political campaigns are sort of the same type of risk and maybe more risk because there's so many signs up. But it's tough to service them the same way you would service the regular and small stream of real estate requests. I think they do that in Sault Ste. Marie. They have self-standing signs. And that's tough too.
We could just have another category.
Now, what about some gas utilities or utilities with fiber? What are your thoughts on this? Does anyone hold to the line that, yes, these campaigns should call for locates and wait the 5 days, and as members, we should step up and deliver those, that volume of locates within a very short period of time? And when you think about it, one of the requirements of the Act, and those are good points, Dan, one of the requirements of the Act is that you reconcile the marks on the ground with the written records. I doubt a typical volunteer who's a layperson will really understand how to do that. And they won't know what the lines mean in any case, if they don't have the color scheme that goes with it. And it comes to us, we've got media calls on it before. And I don't really have a strong answer or advice to the membership. So, I'm interested in with the membership how they would approach that. The deeper buried ones, you're probably in a stronger position. The shallower buried ones, you sort of caught between two extremes. It's a difficult situation. So it's 11:05, and we want to wrap up, so perhaps one last question.
Hi, I'm Kim Nugent from Intersource Hydro Mississauga. I'm just talking in regards to what we were speaking about with election signs. I think it's going to be extremely hard to monitor and to manage. It's going to put some people maybe at an unfair advantage, those that maybe don't apply for locate signs in regards to an election party, others that do and they have to wait the 5 days. I just don't see where it's going to go. I think it's going to be extremely hard to manage, and you're going to have locates go up exponentially, which is going to increase costs for all members. I just don't see it happening. So I think a lot of study has to be done beforehand if you're thinking of implementing something like that that's going to impact all members.
Thanks, Kim. So we'll wrap up with that. Certainly that was an interesting discussion. Perhaps the consensus in the room is that we should just dispose of democracy and not have the elections at all. Perhaps that would make the ministry's life easier too. No politicians to get in their way. I think that's
this is being televised, right?
Yeah, this is probably outside of the powers of Ontario One Call. But that is an important discussion, and we will certainly revisit that in the future. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out today. It's a great turnout. I'm pretty confident in saying it's our largest one in the last several years. I do want to urge you to attend the grand opening at 104 Cooper. There's some directions just outside on the reception table. There's a great spread of food there. We have MPPs and VIPs attending. You can meet the mayor. And if you haven't seen our new offices, I probably, take it for granted because I work there every day, but those who've seen it for the first time are really impressed with it. It's a really impressive facility just visually, but there's lots of cool things in there. And for those of you who always wonder what exactly Ontario One Call does and what exactly that looks like, it's definitely worth your time to come down. So hopefully I'll see you there in about 20 minutes. Thanks, everyone.